The wounded bear pleaded with these individuals for assistance, only for them to unwittingly deprive her of something valuable. Bears rank among the most formidable and relentless predators in the natural realm. Their immense stature and bone-crushing bites make them truly formidable. Now, picture the scenario of encountering one of these formidable creatures during a camping expedition. This very scenario unfolded for friends Michael and Todd during their weekend getaway in the woods. However, the most astonishing and astounding revelation occurred the following day. Michael and Todd had been friends since their school days and managed to stay connected even after parting ways. As they pursued successful careers, found life partners, and started their own families, finding time for each other became increasingly challenging. In their younger days, they would spend entire days in each other's company, and as they grew older, their adventures evolved to include frequent nights of partying and drinking, occurring 4 or 5 times a week. However, as time passed and responsibilities mounted, their encounters became less frequent, yet their bond remained steadfast. It was this enduring friendship that motivated them to make a deliberate decision to organize a camping excursion to the woods on the outskirts of town. At that location, a vast lake awaited their arrival, offering them the opportunity to indulge in some fishing. The tranquility of the surroundings created a sense of being a world away from the usual chaos and commotion of daily life, providing the perfect setting for them to unwind, reminisce, and engage in heartfelt conversations reminiscent of their heyday. As the highly anticipated weekend of their camping adventure approached, Todd set off to collect Michael from his residence. Todd had the bigger car, so it made sense if they wanted to get everything in there. And off they went out to the woods talking about sports life and all kinds of nonsense. After driving for a few hours, they finally reached their destination and began to set up camp. The weather was perfect and the scenery was breathtakingly beautiful. It really was going to be a good and adventurous weekend. Little did they know just how adventurous it really would be. On the final day of a very fun and successful trip, the two friends sat drinking just outside their tents, a few shortened meters from their parked car. That's when they heard a noise, a quiet rustling and patting of feet. Turning around, Michael saw, much to his surprise, a giant brown bear walking from behind Todd's car, panicking and wanting to ensure that the big bear didn't climb into his vehicle. Todd pressed a button on his car keys that automatically closed the trunk and locked the doors. They then noticed that the bear was walking with a slight limp. It didn't seem aggressive or like it wanted to attack them, and it didn't take long for curiosity to overtake Michael and Todd's fear. What was up with the bear? It slumped down, seemingly fed up. This allowed the two men to cautiously take a look at its back legs. That's where they saw a bear trap tightly clamped around the bear's right ankle. It was obviously in pain, so Michael and Todd devised a plan to help it. Michael would sneak around the back to try to remove the trap, while Todd distracted the bear by throwing it small morsels of food to eat from the ground as it laid there. It was a nervous few moments as Michael silently approached, but with one quick tug of the release levers, the clamp fell from the bear's foot. It had clearly been there a while, as evidenced by the old blood. The grateful bear then stood up and headed to the car, where it started peering through the windows and pawing at the door. Todd was certainly relieved that it was locked. If the bear got in there and tore everything up, there was no way he could explain it to his wife. Several hours passed and the bear remained alert as it sat next to the car. Hunger seemed to get the best of the bear, and it seemingly reluctantly wandered off to find food. Michael and Todd took the opportunity to quickly pack up, throw everything into the car, and leave before the bear returned. After all, it might be more angry and vicious the next time, so that's what they did. Shocked by the encounter, they couldn't stop talking about it all the way back. Arriving back in town late, Todd dropped Michael off, drove home, and decided he'd leave the unpacking until the morning, if only he knew what kind of surprise awaited him. The next day rolled around and Todd went to his car and opened the trunk. What he saw made him jump out of his skin. A tiny bear cub sat amongst the hastily thrown in camping gear. It seemed frightened and hungry, and Todd had to quickly come to his senses and help the poor small animal. He rushed to find it some food and some blankets to wrap it in for safety. Clearly the cub had climbed in before he managed to close the trunk, and the mother was looking for her baby in the car after they had removed the bear trap from her ankle. It all made sense now. He then called Michael, explaining the situation to him. As he talked on the phone, the cub jumped out, rubbing against Todd's leg in the most adorable way. It truly did melt his heart, but a shocked Michael told him that they needed to return the cub to his natural habitat and his mother, and as much as Todd wanted to keep the little critter, he agreed with his friend. So that's what they did, quickly picking Michael back up the pier, and their new cub friend spent several hours driving back to the exact spot where they had camped. The cub seemed agitated in the back of the car, whining and clawing at the interior, much to Todd's dismay, but eventually they arrived and parked up in almost the exact spot as they did on their trip. Jumping out of the car, they shouted for the bear's mother, but there was no sign of her. They waited for several hours, just watching the cub happily forage in the surrounding area, but still, there was no sign of the big bear they had seen during their camping trip. Then all of a sudden, they heard a rustling again, but this time it wasn't the mother bear. It was a hunter armed with a sizable rifle and clearly a little inebriated. The hunter's gaze shifted from Michael and Todd Worley to the bear cub, innocently padding around behind them. It was evident that he desired to shoot the cub and claim it as a trophy. He insisted that the friends step aside and allow him to take the shot, emphasizing that the cub would grow into a larger, more dangerous bear capable of harming someone. Surprisingly, the two friends positioned themselves as a protective barrier, shielding the cub from harm. They explained the circumstances and shared their story, leading to the realization that this very hunter had set the bear trap, and that Michael and Todd had thwarted his plans by enabling the escape of the big bear. Enraged by their interference, the hunter angrily packed his belongings, aiming his gun at Michael and Todd. He threatened to shoot them and seize the bear cub if they did not hand it over willingly, a consolation prize for his failure to capture and kill the mother bear. Furthermore, it would serve as satisfying revenge for the two campers who had tampered with his bear traps. Nevertheless, Michael and Todd remained resolute, determined to keep the bear cub safe in their care. Just as the hunter prepared to pull the trigger, the mother bear emerged from the trees, charging toward him at full speed. Caught off guard, the hunter had little time to react or aim his gun before the bear pounced upon him. In a panicked state, he fired, but the bullet harmlessly struck an old tree stump, and the mother bear knocked the rifle from his grasp. Engaged in a struggle with his formidable furry assailant, the hunter inadvertently struck his head forcefully against a large rock, rendering him unconscious and seemingly lifeless. The mother bear lost interest, stepping back and turning her attention to Michael, Todd, and her cub, seemingly convinced that they posed a threat. Michael and Todd cautiously retreated towards their car, only to be taken aback by the heartwarming coos of the mother bear towards her cub. The cub, in response, approached its mother, who lovingly licked and nuzzled it, showering it with affection. It was evident that the mother had deeply longed for her child. The two bears slowly vanished into the woods without looking back. Success. They had successfully reunited the family, placing the unconscious hunter in the back of their car. As they drove to the nearest hospital, Michael and Todd wore beaming smiles. While they had grown attached to the little bear, the sight of its reunion with its loving mother surpassed all else. Now it's your turn. What are your thoughts on this astounding and astonishing tale? How would you have responded if you discovered a bear cub in the back of your vehicle? Share your reactions in the comments section below. Thank you.